Hello Sharks, I'm Jonathan Little for PokerCoaching.com. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Today we have a hand from the High Stakes Duel between Daniel Negreanu and Phil Hellmuth. This is the third round. Round 1, Phil Hellmuth won. Round 2, Phil Hellmuth won. Round 3, do I spoil it for you? I'm going to tell you who won. Phil Hellmuth won. He just gets the job done, huh? That magical power he seems to have to just know what to do and to make good hands prevails again. If you want to watch the entire match live, well, not live, but watch them play physically instead of just a replayer, make sure you head over to Poker Go. Everything is right there for you. We're going to be taking a look at an interesting hand that they played pretty early in the match. As you can see, Daniel Negreanu got off to a little bit of a lead. They started with 200,000 chips total. He's up to 236,000. And this is kind of the hand that started to sway the match a little bit in Phil Hellmuth's direction. For those who do not know, Phil Hellmuth, you've been living under a rock. He has 15 World Series of Poker bracelets. Probably going to get 1 or 2 more this year. He seems to just get it done every year. He also has $24 million in live tournament cashes, which is a lot. And he's actually cashed in tournaments every single year since 1987. That's before a lot of us were born. I was born before then, but I know a lot of you here are not. If you're a youngster here, if you were born after 1987, let me know in the comment section below. His opponent, Daniel Negreanu, has 6 World Series of Poker bracelets. Not even half as many as Phil. Come on, Daniel, you're slacking. But $42 million in live tournament earnings. That's a lot. He's also 3rd on the all-time money list, and he has been battling it out in the heads-up streets, doing his best to crush his opponents, but it's hard to crush the Phil Hellmuth, apparently. All right, in this hand, Daniel Negreanu raises it up with pocket 9s, and Phil Hellmuth 3 bets. 1, 2, 3. If you are not sure which hands you should be 3-betting before the flop, from a game theory optimal point of view, I have free heads-up no-limit charts for you. Make sure you go to pokercoaching.com/HUNL to download them. Here are some of them right here. Big blind versus a raise range. Here's the 3-betting range for Phil Hellmuth. Here's the calling range. The hands down here are all folded, right? All the garbage is folded. So all of these medium strength hands opt to call the majority of the time. All the best hands opt to 3-bet. Notice the number 1 here. That means you 3-bet these hands 100% of the time. Whereas let's say 0.5, you 3-bet half the time. 0.2, you 3-bet 20% of the time. Playing this strategy is going to be perfectly fine, perfectly viable. Okay? Go get the charts. There's a bunch more of them, right? pokercoaching.com/HUNL. All right. In this scenario, what do we do with the pocket 9s? Well, scroll on down. Button versus 3-bet range, right? So this is when you raise the button, big blind 3-bets. What do we do? Well, with pocket 9s, as you can see here, you call basically every time, 80%. You 4-bet and get it all in, the rest, right? As you see, there is a small smattering of bluffs. Actually, you can't see this. Sorry, it's off the screen. Ha! Small smattering of bluffs. 2%, 4%, etc. With a bunch of these nonsense hands in here. And, you can get after it every once in a while if you feel inclined. And to be fair, you should get after it every once in a while if you are trying to play good, strong, fundamentally sound poker. That said, pocket 9s playing about 100, 150 big blinds deep is going to be a call in this scenario the vast majority of the time. And that is what Daniel Negreanu does. Flop comes 3-3-2. Now, Phil Hellmuth immediately checks. Immediately. Okay. Over here to the pocket 9s. This is where it's tough to know what to do, because what is Phil Hellmuth immediately checking? If you have watched these matches on Poker Go, you have seen Phil Hellmuth do some pretty abnormal things. And I am sure, well, I imagine if you tried to correlate it to hand strength, maybe you could. If I was going to play Phil Hellmuth in a heads-up match, you can be very certain I would be hiring a behavioral expert to go through all of these videos that he's played over the last, 5 years, and try to get reads on the type of range he has when he snap checks, or when he tanks for forever, and then bets smaller, tanks for forever, then bets big, right? And this is why, especially if you are going to be playing against the same players on a regular basis, or if you're going to be playing a lot of games where your cards are face up, you really should try to have roughly the same behavior in all scenarios. And to be fair, this is why you see a lot of the best players in the world in the high-stakes tournaments in games where there's a time bank, take something like 25 seconds every single decision, because sometimes you need the time, sometimes you don't. It's annoying, but the rules kind of push you in that direction so that your opponents can't get any good reads on you based on timing, right? If you play online poker, online timing tells are one of the big tells you have to go on. Anyway, I don't know what this means for Phil Hellmuth because I've not diligently studied his timing tells. So in general, pocket nines here, I think you probably just want to put out a bet, because when Phil Hellmuth snap checks, he most likely has some sort of marginal made hand, or, well, a marginal made hand in this scenario is going to be something like ace-king. You may say, is ace-king a made hand? Someone said in the YouTube comment section that a made hand is a straight or better. No. A marginal made hand is a hand that probably wins at showdown if a lot of money does not go in the pot. Or sometimes if a lot of money goes in the pot. But you want to make sure you're not the one really pushing the action. Because if you do have ace-king, let's say, in this scenario, in Phil Hellmuth's shoes, and you bet the flop, bet the turn, bet the river, are you really getting called by that many worse hands? The answer is no. So very often you want to be checking with some of your marginal made hands. So you have to ask, essentially, is my hand good enough to reasonably check and then call a bet? If so, it's a marginal made hand, right? Obviously, you could have some sort of draw equity, etc. But if you're check calling with the idea that if this hand checks on the turn in the river, or I call a turn bet and then it checks on the river, I win, that's a marginal made hand. Doesn't mean you have the nuts. That's a premium made hand. If you have a straight, obviously you have a straight here. But if you have like a 3 here, that's the nuts. To be fair, if you have something like aces here, it's basically the nuts because it's pretty unlikely Phil Hellmuth has a 3. Now, I'm not going to say that Phil Hellmuth has a GTO preflop 3-betting strategy, but if he did, take a look at this range. Look at all the 3s that are in it. Well, almost none, right? There's literally no offsuit 3s at all. And then there's just a few small combinations of, 3s, like 5-3 suited, 6-3 suited, 4-3 suited, ace-3 suited, but not all that many combinations, right? So for that reason, most of Phil Hellmuth's range, assuming he's playing this strategy, is going to be a lot of big unpaired high cards, right? Of course, he could have aces, kings, queens, jacks, 10s, right? And may check them. But most of his range is going to be unpaired hands. So for that reason, I think Negreanu just wants to bet with the pocket nines, because if Hellmuth folds anything, like, I don't know, jack 10 suited, it's fine, right? Because that hand has some reasonable equity. The problem is that if you bet and get check raised, it becomes pretty nasty, because then what's actually check raising you here? Well, you got to presume it's going to be good draws and good made hands. So what's a good draw here? It's going to be like a flush draw, which has good equity against you. Or a good made hand like pocket jacks, which also has, great equity against you. So if you think you're not going to get check raised here very often, then I like betting. But if you think you're going to get check raised a decent amount, I would be way more inclined to check it back. And I will say, whenever you're playing live poker, not necessarily against Phil Hellmuth's a world-class player. He gets in there, he mixes it up, and I don't know what he's doing. But if your opponent does something really weird, like say they normally have regular timing when they're playing, and then all of a sudden now, they snap check the flop. That's kind of weird. And whenever someone does something kind of weird, I usually assume their range is either way weaker than normal, in which case you don't really need to bet for value/protection with the nines because your opponent's drawing thin or dead, or their range is really strong, in which case you don't want to put any money in the pot with the pocket nines, right? So if I thought this was very abnormal, I would be kind of inclined to check behind, but from a GTO point of view, I think you definitely just want to make a small bet here with the nines. And that is what Negreanu does. And then Phil Hellmuth, about as fast as he checked the flop, immediately raises to 25,000. Oh, what a debacle. I think here Negreanu just has to continue. This is an annoying spot, right? Because now, if we go back to this reasonable range, if it is literally like over pairs and flush draws, that's not good. However, Hellmuth may be doing this with some stone nonsense for fun, right? I haven't seen too many people put in the 5 bets with the 8-3 suited when they're against pocket 2s and then run a pretty wild post-flop bluff. Again, I don't think Hellmuth's range is this range here. I think he's probably 3-betting more with just like a lot of good, strong, big card hands plus some just absolute nonsense. And to be fair, if he is 3-betting some absolute nonsense, I think he's like way more polarized essentially. If he has more nonsense, he may actually have way more 3s in his range. Like say 3-bets jack 3 suited or 5-3 offsuit, which, he does get out of line and do that sometimes. Then this becomes way more of a nasty spot because he actually does have a decent number of super nuts in his range. So anyway, you can't fold 9s here. I mean, if you fold 9s here, you're basically saying, I think Phil Hellmuth is so tight to the point that he literally never bluffs. And if he is bluffing, it's just with a good flush draw, right? Because a good flush draw, like let's say he has ace-5 of spades. That has plenty of equity against 9s. He may be doing this with like sixes, though, just trying to get value slash protection. So I don't really see how you can fold here. Negreanu does call. Turns with 5 of clubs. Phil Hellmuth snap checks. All right, over to Negreanu now. Pot 72,000 with 127,000 behind. We are playing super deep stack, don't forget. I want you to take a second and consider, what would you do with the pocket nines in this scenario? Would you just check it back and try to see a cheap showdown? Would you make another small bet? Would you make a big bet, like let's say 60,000? Or would you make the over bet, the roughly 1.8x pot bet, all in? Take a second to think about this, and then write what you would do in the comment section below. I'm going to read them. Go ahead, do it. All right. Given this hand has played out very oddly in terms of Phil Hellmuth mannerisms, I think the right play is to just check it back because, kind of like on the flop, it's really a disaster if you bet and get jammed. So the question is, if I bet turn, if Negreanu bets turn, are we going to get jammed all that often? And I think given this weird snap check raise, snap check turn line, whatever, just get me out of this hand, please. Let's check it down. Hopefully I win. And the nice thing about nines is that if it does go check, you kind of know what river cards are bad for you, right? Like an ace, king, queen, jack, 10. Well, mainly ace, king, and queen. Ace, king, and queen are all pretty bad for you. A 4 is also pretty bad for you, but every other card's like fine, right? Because you got to realize if Hellmuth does have like ace, queen, or king, queen, if a jack or a 10 comes, it's fine. I mean, of course, Hellmuth could have like ace, jack, and the river comes a jack, but you know, often he's going to have like ace, king more often than ace, jack, I have to imagine. So I think you can reasonably call a 50K bet on all the relatively safe rivers. I don't think you need to be too worried about spade draws or club draws. The fact that you have spades and clubs are nice because you block those, right? So if a club does come, it's a little bit less likely sitting here with a flush draw because you can't have ace 9 of clubs or king 9 of clubs or 9-2 of clubs, right? So I think this is a scenario where I would just let it go check, mainly because this weird snap check line is just weirding me out a bit. Now, you could flip this concept on its head, I'm sure, and say that, well, if its snap check line means almost entirely marginal made hands, then obviously we should be way more inclined to just value bet and get protection, because why let him see the free river with a hand like king queen or ace jack? Why not bet and charge him, right? And if that's the case, then we obviously should bet. But I just don't know what's going on in this scenario. And to be fair, maybe Negreanu has done the study, and he knows that when Phil Hellmuth takes this line, he usually has a marginal made hand. Marginal made hand as I classify it, not as some YouTube commenters classify it. So, you know, like ace high or pocket sixes. If that's his range, you should definitely bet, because you just have the best hand by a mile and you don't mind protection. And this is where poker gets tough, because really, it's hard to know the right answer because we do not know Phil Hellmuth's range. We don't know if he's using this strategy pre-flop. We definitely don't know if the snap check raise, snap check line indicates anything about the strength of his range. And that makes this a rather convoluted spot, right? Anyway, with nines here, I usually just take the easy way out, which may not be the most profitable, but it ensures we never find ourselves in a disaster spot. And I just check it back. Negreanu does go for the medium bet size. I think he could probably even go a little bit smaller here. 23K. I don't think we're really trying to get stacks in here. I think the play is to bet turn. If Hellmuth calls, probably just let it go check on the river. I think Hellmuth very easily could have aces, kings, queens, jacks, tens, right? So I think if we bet small here, we're going to get a little bit of value / protection from the draws / unpaired overcards. To be fair, maybe he still just calls here with like king, queen, or any ace is going to call this bet, so it's not like we're getting a ton of protection from that anyway, because any, like ace king has very good equity, right? Has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 outs. 10 outs is a lot. And it's barely making a mistake calling. So, I don't know. Maybe this bet's fine. I think this bet's reasonable. You do, in the ideal world, want to make a bet that results in when you get raised, he just like always has the nuts so you can fold. But heads up, against someone who will run big bluffs, as Phil Hellmuth has proven. He plays that zoom poker strategy every once in a while. You don't really want to go around folding over pairs. And then, disaster strikes. He gets check raised. And right here again, your strategy purely depends on what you think about Hellmuth's strategy and range, right? If he has a lot of threes, like 5-3 offsuit, then this becomes way closer to a fold. But if his range contains a lot of draws, and we have seen Phil Hellmuth check raise all in on the turn with flush draws, then you should be way more inclined to find a call. That said, I would not be shocked if he turns up ace-4 here. I would not be shocked if he shows the 6-4 offsuit. Wouldn't be shocked if he shows up with pocket aces. Wouldn't be shocked if he shows up with a random 3 that's not in the GTO preflop range, right? Like 10-3 suited for all I know, right? What bluffs are there? What bluffs are there that Negreanu is really happy to be against, right? Because if he does show up with, like, I don't know, 8-7 of spades, it's not like you're thrilled, right? It's fine. Don't get me wrong. It's fine, but it's not like you're thrilled. Especially if you have something like Jack 10 of spades, because that has loads of outs. The problem here is that whenever you're against a better made hand, you're just close to dead. And whenever you're against a draw, Hellmuth still has a good 20, 35% equity, something like that. It is worth noting, will Hellmuth ever check raise all in with a worse made hand? Like ace-5, pocket 6s, pocket 7s, pocket 8s? I wouldn't be surprised if he showed up with pocket 8s here, pocket 7s. I think that's certainly reasonable. Maybe pocket 4s, right? As there are more made hands in his range that you beat, you should be way more inclined to call. As there are more draws in his range, you should be way more inclined to call. As there are more nut hands in his range that you lose to, or just better made hands, you should be way more inclined to fold. And it's tough because Phil Hellmuth mixes it up. Negreanu does find the call. Certainly can't fault him for this because, like I said, heads up, you don't want to go around folding over pairs. And Phil Hellmuth shows up with the Queen 3 of hearts. Ooh, one of these nasty ones. 0% 3 bets from a GTO point of view. But like I said, Phil Hellmuth doesn't go around playing the GTO strategy. He gets in there, he mixes it up, uses his magical powers, and, well, takes a whole load of chips from Dale Negreanu. Fun hand. I imagine a lot of you would have played this hand differently. I think I would have just checked back on the turn in Negreanu's shoes, called a riverbed, and lost, right? The nice thing, I will say the very nice thing about just checking it back on the turn is that while you give up some protection and some value from like pocket 6s or Jack 10, is that you induce bluffs on the river, and you can easily call, right? Because you're not folding pocket 9s even on like a Jack river or 10 river. And then also, when you are beat, when you are set up like this against the random Queen 3, you lose like a 50k bet on the river. Because notice the pot would have been 72k, right? So if the pot's 72k, what's he going to bet? 72? I mean, he may just shove it all in for 2x pot, whatever, But most of the time, he's not going to go all in here, and then you just don't lose all your money. A spot where, given the very, very odd line of the snap checking and whatnot, I think you just want to take the easy way out in these spots, which may not be the most profitable, but you're certainly going to play it at least reasonably well. Because when Negreanu takes this line, sometimes he's playing it perfectly, but sometimes he's playing it horribly, and I never know which spot I'm in. Maybe Negreanu has a better read and it just didn't work out this time. But I take the easy way out against people who I don't know so well. But these players have played infinitely together, so, maybe Negreanu played it great and it just didn't work out this time. That's the tough thing about playing against good players. They mix it up. So that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed this fun hand from these two titans of poker. If you did, do me a favor. Click the like and subscribe buttons below. Also, click the notification bell. I would appreciate that so that you are notified whenever we have, well, lots of new content for you. Also, if you enjoy this channel, tell your friends. I know all of you have at least one friend out there, maybe more. Go tell them about this channel. I would appreciate that, because if you do that and they come and they like it too, we help more people improve their poker skills and make the most of their recreation or their profession, whatever it is, right? Also, check out pokercoaching.com/free if you have not, and get your free heads up, no limit charts at pokercoaching.com/HUNL. Good luck in your games. Have a great, great day. Thank you for being here, and I will talk to you next time. How would you like to have one of these championship bracelets from winning a major poker tournament? Well, here, I have plenty. I'll give you one of these. Oh. Couldn't quite get it to you. Instead, you're going to have to win your own. To get started, click the subscribe button.